All right, we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached it. This is the halfway point of Community Manager Appreciation Day. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have a fantastic panel for you here. Today is the day across the country that we, across the world, not just the country, like straight up world, where we want to celebrate community managers. It all started with Jeremiah Owing 7 years ago, saying, hey, how about the fourth Monday of January, we celebrate community managers, and that's exactly what we're doing. This is our fourth year with the live Hangouts, the third year we've been doing the Hangouts with the awards, and it's just been absolutely fantastic. So my name is Dom. I am co-host with Sherry and Brew for my community manager, as well as a project manager and community manager for BTC Revolutions.
Hey guys, I'm Barack. I'm the founder of Amplify Your Biz, if I can say that right, and I'm the community manager for Meshfire here in Seattle.
Hey everybody, I'm Sherry Rohde, and I'm the community manager at Magento, as well as co-produce CMGR Hangout. And just real quick, I want to give a shout out to the sponsors for CMAD. We have Salesforce Community Cloud, Higher Logic, Online Community Results, Sprout Social, Vanilla Forums, Zoom, CommunityManagement.org, SocialMedia.org, Amplify Yourself, Igloo Internet, Meshfire, and that's it.
Awesome. And I'm really excited to be able to announce this next award. This award that we are doing right now is for the traffic controller, the person that follows processes and quickly routes issues to the correct department. We had a ton of nominations for this. Your 5 finalists were Nicoletta Visecci, I think I'm saying that right, Liz Chambers, Kristen Gastaldo, Kathy Doherty, and Alyssa Trumbull. And I am very honored to let everyone know, if they want to get a drum roll, drum it up. Congratulations to Alyssa Trumbull from BTC Revolutions. You'll see her tweet or Twitter out there. Make sure to send her some high five gifts and say whoop whoop to you. So, like I said, got all that stuff out of the way. We have an amazing panel here, some real rock stars, talking about the pros and cons of personal branding for community managers. So, Rachel, the show is yours.
Woohoo! Hey everybody, my name is Rachel Miller. I'm a social strategist at Pure Matter. I could not be more stoked to be hosting this panel. Community Manager Appreciation Day is an epic event, and personal branding is a hot topic. And I have a killer panel of community managers, community advocates, social strategists. So let's get it started. First, we'll do introductions. I'm going to start with our token boy first. Carlos, you want to tell everybody who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, how's it going, everyone? It's so good to be with you here today. I am Carlos Gill. I'm the global head of social media for BMC Software, and I'm also a really big advocate for personal branding as well as community. So I'm really excited to be here and looking forward to this discussion.
Miss Kira Moore.
Hello, I'm Kira Moore from Denver, Colorado. I am a social strategist, assistant to Jim Keenan and his brand as sales guy. And happy to be here. Thank you for joining us. We are here to talk about bringing in your personal brand, your personal style, and being able to represent a company, whether that's a good or a bad thing. It's going to be a good conversation. Thanks for having me.
Lorrie.
Hi everyone, I am Lorrie Guerrieri, and I am in the Philadelphia, PA area, and I am a community manager at BTC Revolutions, and I am so excited to be here. As far as personal branding is concerned, I've learned a lot from some of the people that are here with us right now, so I'm really excited. Thanks, guys.
And Miss Suzie.
Hey guys, so I actually work with Rachel at Pure Matter. Whoop whoop. I am a social strategist. I also co-host H2H Chat every Monday. Little plug, we're going to be on in 4 hours. And I'm my focus is on community activation and really also leadership within community managers ourselves. So I'm super psyched.
Awesome, awesome. Well, welcome again, everybody. We're going to start the conversation with kind of a softball. We all have different backgrounds, so I'm really curious to hear your take on what personal branding means to you. So when you're reading an article or you hear it in conversation, what does the term personal branding mean to you? And we'll start with Miss Lorrie.
Thank you. So when I think of personal branding, the first thing I think about is marketing yourself. I think it's your character, it's your interests, the people you talk to, the content you share, what you're passionate about, all how it relates to what you want to be known for, really, the industry that you want to work in, what you want to be associated with. So it's the impression that people have of you, and essentially it's your identity. So everything that you do is connected to who you want to be known for.
I couldn't agree more. It is definitely, so far as even selling yourself, I guess, could be another way to phrase that.
Absolutely, yeah. And everything that you're doing is working towards one goal, really, and that is who you want to be in the social world, I guess, how you want to be perceived.
Great. Comments from Carlos Cure?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to build on that. You know, I think obviously of an individual and what makes up that person, who they are, what makes up their uniqueness, and maybe it's a byproduct of working and being so close to social media, but I think immediately of their digital presence, and I think of how their digital presence conveys who they are. And more often than none, who you are online tends to carry over to who you are offline. So are you engaging on Twitter? Do you have a presence on LinkedIn? Do you have a website? All this makes up what I almost call your personal storefront. And again, to Lorrie's point before, what's your end game? What are you trying to accomplish? And everything that you do, all the actions that you take, whether it's networking, participating in live hangouts like this, blogging, all that makes up that uniqueness. And again, it's all tied to your digital footprint. So when I look at someone's personal brand, or even when I assess my own personal brand and think, you know, how effective am I, or how effective are others in branding themselves? It's very simple. Google yourself. Google your name and what you see that comes up on the first page of Google, because forget the second, third, and fourth. Everyone just looks at the first. Whatever comes up on the first page essentially is your personal brand. And all the action that you take, the work that you put forward, is represented in those results.
Yeah, I'm just going to piggyback. Yeah, just speaking of Googling Carlos, I used to be the only Kira Kennison in the entire world, at least on Facebook or Google, so I count that as the entire world. And then I got married, and now I'm an Irish girl, Kira Moore. But anyway, so I just want to elaborate how important personal brand is, not just to social media marketers, not to community managers, community and manager appreciators. This is for every single person out there, whether you have a job or whether you're looking for a job, especially if you're looking for a job, if you're in college, if you want to develop, like everyone's saying, an identity for people to be able to find you on Google, understand at least a snapshot of who you are before they call you in for an interview is huge. So personal branding, it is the broadcast that you're putting out. We are a globalized world. Everyone's looking, so what do you want people to find when they look for you?
Yeah, I would definitely, you know, I agree with everything that's been said. Obviously, I have my own personal brand, which is also the girl with the red hair, and I find that I can no longer change my red hair. Not that I want to, but I get asked that all the time. You know, why I have my red hair, why, you know, all these different things, and I say, you know, it's a reflection of who I am. It's a deliberate choice. And I think that's one thing to recognize as well, is that when you're doing personal branding, it's important to take control of who you are, because like it or not, you are online. Unless you go and completely erase yourself, which is difficult, you basically, you know, maybe you get the right to be forgotten if you're in Europe. but you are online. And so you can, you decide how to control that story. And you don't. The other thing I would say though that is important is you don't need to put out 100% of who you are. There's this idea, of saying, okay, I have to be completely transparent if I'm going to do a personal brand. No, I mean you need to be authentic, and it needs to be a certain persona and a story, but it that you're putting out what you want to put out there. So I think personal branding has to do with strategy, has to do with self-reflection. And it has to deal with the overall narrative. And I like the concept of bringing in marketing, because I personally believe that a huge amount of strategy needs to goes into doing a successful personal brand.
So that being said, Suzie, as a social media professional, your face is out there. Have you made a concentrated effort to build your brand, or to focus on highlighting certain aspects and then maybe suppressing others?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all about, the way I actually got into all of this had to do with community building and community activation. And I decided, thinking through different things, I kind of, at various points I've gone, okay, I want to do this, I want to do the other thing, but I've just found that my passion is building community and focusing on that. And so that's the content I share. I write posts focused on that. I'm open and engaging. I want to make sure to create that attitude. But the one thing, I'm very passionate about knowing my community and engaging them, and that's become my personal brand. And a lot of it too is you find your community also helps to define your personal brand, and it's that engagement to me that's really important.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from everyone else. Like, what efforts have you made to bring out certain aspects of your personal brand?
I'll go ahead and just jump in. I think your personal brand is a constant evolution. It's no different than your career path. You're constantly evolving. As individuals, we're always progressing. We're always changing. So I actually started building out my personal brand on social media 8 years ago. I lost my job due to the recession. I used to be a banker, and I happened to fall into social media. I happened to join LinkedIn the day I lost my job back in 2008, and I realized if I was going to find a job, whether it was back then or at any point, I would have to do something to stand out from millions of other candidates in the U.S. alone. So for me, social media has really been what's been able to help me dust myself off back then, and the way it's progressed has led for me to have a career in brand marketing. And none of that would have been possible without evangelizing this concept of putting yourself out there. But one thing that's extremely important that shouldn't be lost in this conversation is relationships. And you meet people along the way, and that's what I think you spend the most time on putting the work in. Anyone can write a blog post, anyone can go into a Twitter chat, but building relationships takes time. Building the right relationships, having people be able to validate who you are, all of that takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. So for me, it's been an 8-year evolution, if you will, and my personal brand, the way it's really evolved, no pun intended, has been someone that's advocated for this and how people can take these steps, how they can leverage social. So that's really what I would say is really think of not just putting out the content, but really the minutia of building the relationships with others and the impact that that's going to have for you long term. Because it's all about a long-term play, not just a short-term gain.
I love that you mentioned relationship building, because I think that is a huge component of a personal brand. It's not just your thought leadership and people knowing what you do. It's who you are and how you behave around others. I think that's really an important thing to bring up. So awesome. Lorrie?
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit to the evolution point that Carlos had brought up, because this, I think, is my favorite question, because it's interesting. I started building my personal brand the exact same time that I started on social as a professional. And I didn't even realize the work that I was doing for the brand that I was representing was ultimately building this personal brand for myself. And so I'm sure some of you remember it was Movi. It was a video messaging app. And I had no choice but to be my authentic self every single day. I was on video. And those relationships that I built that were so strong because I was myself actually then played into the personal brand. And so when that failed, I had pretty much a 6-month time frame where my only job was to build my personal brand. And so you're in those Twitter chats, you're getting on Hangouts, you're writing articles, you're tying yourself into what you are passionate about, what you want to be known for again. And so then that brand is then what helped to launch the job that I have now. And so it is an evolution, and it kind of ebbs and flows. And so the more time that you put into it, the more that you'll help land yourself to the next level. But those relationships that you build are the groundwork for your personal brand.
So speaking of evolution, so once you've put the time in to build your personal brand, and you're a rock star, people know you by your name, even perhaps more so than the brand that you're representing, can that have a negative effect on your ability to perform as a community manager, or is it just purely perception of like how you're outwardly appearing to the community?
I just want to jump in and answer that. I think it can have an adverse effect. And I just want to speak for myself. I've worked at a few different brands now, and it's actually internally, because of perception, perception's reality, it's actually hindered how I've been viewed at other jobs, where people assume, oh, because he has more followers than our brand, he's self-promoting himself, or he's blogging, or he's on this podcast. So it almost becomes like a negative, something negative internally with your peers and your coworkers, and it honestly shouldn't be that way. Most executives, when they see someone that has a defined personal brand, especially when they're going through the hiring process, that's very attractive. That's often sometimes that helps, it's a differentiator that helps you get a job over other candidates. But again, because of that perception factor internally, I think it works against you. On the outside, I think it really helps you, because you can work for a company and people associate you with that brand. And they know that if they have an issue with that brand, or if they have a question, that they can go directly to you, and they're actually engaging with a real human being and not just an avatar or a logo.
So I'm going to kind of meld the two questions together. Lorrie had mentioned that she had kind of started establishing her brand when she got the job, and that's awesome. That's a great point. You can kind of build your own online portfolio for that next job. I had the opposite experience. I had joined Facebook when I first went to college. It was in 2003, right when Facebook had gone beyond Harvard. So I had the opposite experience, and this is kind of a best practice for anyone, whether you're going for a community manager position or any position for that matter. Go back and audit your existing social media presence, because that is still there. Because just because you have to scroll down to 2010, it's still there. So just be aware of that. And as far as kind of the same lines, how that can be negatively perceived, especially if you're representing a brand, but even if you're just representing yourself. Like, I've been interviewing recently for us to expand my department here at A Sales Guy and onboard a new person, a new rock star ready to take on this role. And you see people, and it's just like, F this, just so negative. Like, if you have that many negative thoughts, I'm sorry for you, but like, don't put that on blast. Like, nobody really likes to see that, especially if they're looking to bring on someone who's going to pick up with a culture and like take off and be a part of an awesome culture. We don't want to see that. So just be aware of what's out there. If you're more of a negative person, just try and keep that to yourself, I guess. I'm sorry.
Nobody got time for that.
It's very true. So I know a lot of us have been community managers for individual brands, but there is a huge increase in community management in an agency environment. So I'm curious to hear from you guys, how do you balance a personal brand when you're on a team of community managers and you're all the voice of a specific brand? If you're working for a particularly large one or enterprise company, but you're kind of together managing a community, how does your role, like your individual personal brand, play into that environment?
So I would say that a big component of kind of to all of this, even getting to the previous question, it's really about humility. and recognizing that you are nothing without your team, and you're nothing without your community. And so ultimately, yes, you're building your personal brand, but your community and your coworkers are essential components. Unless you're going to, do freelance, which more power to you. If you choose to work in an agency, or a brand, that's important. The other thing too, though, is recognizing that, if you're doing an interview or anything to go into that brand or agency or wherever, they also need to recognize that they are hiring you with your personality and that you're going to bring that in there, and that they need to value that. And honestly, if they're threatened by that, if they have an issue with that, then it's actually not a good match for you. And so that balance has to be there, that culture, all of that has to be there for you to be successful, for them to be successful, for the interpersonal aspects to be successful. And it's difficult, but ultimately you get all those pieces together and you'll have success, you'll be able to support each other, and strategize together, because it's about the team, it's about the community, it's about all of that.
So for community managers who are just starting out, what would be their first step to building their personal brand? I'd like to hear what's one killer tip from each of you.
I would say a lot of people have said, kind of like birds of a feather, find your niche, whether you're going into community management or if you're looking to go into that next role. Find the people who are talking already. You don't have to build a community from scratch. You can. I met Rachel. I mean, a lot of these faces are so familiar to me. When I first started, I came out of sales. I had no idea what I was doing, you guys. So I just came in, sat in these chats, listened to a lot of the conversations that are going on in the industry, listened to a lot of awesome viewpoints and their experiences and how, how they handled certain challenges or how they strategize and just kind of get to market on things. And just listening and then having the opportunity, especially on things like Blab. If you haven't heard of blab.im, go on and sign up right now, because it's a great way to do something like this, listen to a panel and then pop in and get your questions, get your face out there, and kind of dip your toes in the water. It's a really welcoming community. So just get out there. Just start. If you don't have a Twitter, if you don't have a Facebook, open it up. Don't be overwhelmed by all the things that you have to do. Just start making friends, and it'll come naturally, and it's fun.
I think that's awesome advice. Instead of just kind of starting shouting at people from your profiles, if you go in and join conversations with like-minded peers and start kind of, I guess, the relationship building side of personal branding first. Yeah, that's an awesome tip.
And I want to mention something too, and I know that Carlos will be able to piggyback off this, but it's all about, yes, putting yourself out there, saying yes to as many things as you can, but also being really selective in what you're doing and who you're associating yourself with. Get in those chats, get on those hangouts, write some great articles if you can, if that's something that you're passionate about, get into that. The other thing too is you need to be on LinkedIn, and you've got to have something there. And that's the one place I think where you don't have to be humble. Be open about your achievements and your accomplishments and what you're looking for. Add your LinkedIn profile to your Twitter bio, make it as readily available as possible. And so just, again, putting yourself out there in a position where people know exactly what it is that you're looking for is a huge help.
Yeah, I just wanted to expand on what Lorrie and Kira said. I think a major key to success is really being a student. And so many folks, they want to just jump in the game and they want to be a teacher. And they're driven by vanity metrics and things like that. That at the end of the day, don't really make your personal brand what it is if you're not putting in the work to build the relationships. So they were spot on. My advice is always jump into things like Twitter chats. And I can tell you, just speaking from experience, over the last 2 years, I've been able to take my personal brand to a whole nother level just by spending the time in doing Twitter chats. And I've met, I think all of you, I have met at one point or another through Twitter. And those relationships have expanded over to Facebook, over to LinkedIn, which leads me to my next point, which is diversification. You have to diversify your social presence. You can't get just stuck in one bubble of just, let's say, Twitter. If you go on Facebook today, what's nice about Facebook is it's almost become an extension of LinkedIn. So many of us are friends on Facebook, and there's groups, and there's resources. Tap into those, because I tell you what, the people that impress me the most are the ones that just signed up for Twitter, have less than 100 followers, and they take the time to write a DM to me, not an automated DM, but they actually take the time to write a personalized DM on Twitter and say, hey, I just joined social media, or I'm just getting started in my career in social. What tips do you have? Those are the type of relationships that I personally cherish, because, again, it shows that someone took the time. And that, in its own right, is a quality that you want to have in your own personal brands. Take the time to really engage and build relationships, not just flip a switch and think that you can automate relationships, because that is not a winning strategy whatsoever.
Yeah, and I would add to that, and I completely agree, with you guys. The thing I would say, the first step, though, when you're embarking upon, thinking about being a community manager, thinking about being in social, in general, decide where you want to go, put together a strategy. So that also covers which platforms do you want to be on. Do you want to, have a presence, for example, on Pinterest? Can you commit to that? There's a difference between knowing the strategy, right? So being able to go and say, I know Pinterest, I can teach, or not teach, right? But I know different strategies, I know different things like that. But there's a difference between doing that and actually deciding that you're going to maintain a profile on there, because that's part of the thing too, is as a community manager, you will be held up to a higher standard than others, because you're supposed to be able to do this stuff. So you put together a strategy, you decide who you're going to be. You can actually use your personal brand as a portfolio in and of itself when you're demonstrating that. And so, decide to take the time to get to learn a platform through your personal brand, and think through the strategy, think through the voice. Approach it as you would starting, working for a brand. The other thing I definitely would say is be careful of people who would look to take advantage of you, of your brand. There are lots of people out there who, even a lot who are very well-meaning, but who will look at you, especially if you're young, and who will just kind of leech onto you and have you doing everything, and what ends up happening is you're building their brand and not getting anything out of your own. And so, be mindful of that, and, put yourself in a position of power. I think that's the other aspect with personal branding, is it's a source of protection and a source of leverage for the future. Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm curious, just personally, which social network has been most beneficial for you building your personal brand?
So I would just jump in and say, actually, Twitter. It's, I've gone the tweet chat way. Actually, for a really long time, I had my Facebook profile really limited, just to friends and family. Recently, over the past year, I've, opened that up a bit more. But for me, Twitter is where I can connect to people, and especially, with I write a lot about community and a lot about Twitter strategy, actually, as well. And so that's definitely my home base. I love to play around on other platforms, but that's, where just time and time again, I've seen connections grow. And it's one of the ways that I was able to land my current position, actually. So I'm definitely a fan, but you have to do it strategically. That's the key. You can't just go on and start broadcasting.
Yeah, being strategic is really the key, and for me, it's been a combination of the big three: LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. And the way I've used it is, when I started really focusing on building my personal brand, I went hard on LinkedIn for like 4 years before I really went outside the LinkedIn bubble and started engaging like I do today on Twitter. And what I started doing was I started purposely following on Twitter who I was connected with on LinkedIn so I could see what they were chatting about outside of LinkedIn. And then from there, as relationships would happen organically in Twitter, I would then become friends with these folks on Facebook. So I think ultimately, if you want to get to know someone, if you really want to solidify the relationship, you have to get to know what they do, what their habits are, where they shop, where they eat, if they have kids. And Facebook gives you such a nice peek behind the curtain, if you will. And I gotta say, don't count out Snapchat. And if any of y'all follow me, you know I've been talking about Snapchat for quite a bit now, and it's great that other folks are jumping on board too, because I think that is the ultimate platform where if you want to get to know people, again, we're going to connect this to personal brand. If you want to know people personally, jump on Snapchat, or even you yourself, go on there and just share what you do outside of work. If you do that enough times, people will start to find that you're really relatable. You're not just an avatar on Twitter, and you actually have a pretty, cool and real life. So, again, it goes back to diversification. Be a marketer that uses these platforms, no different than you do for your brand. Use it for yourself, and don't just get stuck in one bubble.
So Carlos, are people building Snapchat-specific communities? I know with Periscope, there are folks who had, prior to the app being available, really small Twitter followings, but they have been able to grow these massive Periscope communities. Are people doing the same thing on Snapchat? Like they just went all in and that's their home base?
They are, but there's two different things happening on Snapchat. One, a lot of the folks that we're already engaged with here on Twitter and on Facebook, a lot of friends in the social media marketing circles, as they're jumping on Snapchat, it's become very communal. There's things like Snapchat takeovers, where you might see someone takes over someone else's account for a day, and essentially what it does is it exposes that person's followers to a new individual. I tell you the effect that Snapchat has had on me over the last few months specifically. I am meeting people through Snapchat. Somehow people are learning about me through Snapchat that don't follow me on Twitter. They're not friends with me on Facebook. And what happens is as soon as they connect with me on Snapchat and they see what I'm all about, then they're like, wow, I really want to follow this guy everywhere. So the reciprocal effect, actually the same thing happened on Blab, when I first got on many months ago. People, if they're drawn to you, they will look you up, they will Google you, and they will start following you. So over the last few months that I've been using Blab and Snapchat, my followers on Twitter have gone up through the roof. My engagement is higher than it's ever been. And again, I attribute that back not only to personal branding, but to engaging and using these new platforms to really expand your audience.
So I know Suzie can relate to this. Like as a social strategist, I really geek out over tools, but I have no FOMO when it comes to new social networks. So I know I've been eyeing Peach, and I kind of, put my toe in the water, and I have a profile. But how does that play into a personal brand? Like as, a community advocate, should we be jumping into every new platform, or should we wait to see how it plays out?
I think it has to do with, once again, it comes back to who you are. So honestly, look me up on, on Snapchat, Periscope. You're not really going to find me. And I'll, put that out there for the world. And once again, I'm putting that out there for the world because I've decided I'm okay with that. The main reason why is I'm not necessarily a video person. I see the value and I can write you a strategy with it, based on other stuff, and, I'll research my head off. But that's just kind of what I've decided, who I'm comfortable being, who I am, in general. So for me, it doesn't necessarily come to, okay, this is the newest tool, this is the newest app, and, all of that stuff. It's more, is this something that actually makes sense for me? Am I actually going to maintain it? Is it going to feel like just work? But once again, that's who I am. I don't necessarily, get off on like the new tech, but I know a lot of people who do, and that is so cool. And I'm reading their blog posts so that I can then make strategic, different, give strategic ideas, and if it comes into a project that says, hey, we really want this, then yeah, I'll be all over it. But once again, then I have a reason to be there. It's not just me trying to manufacture some persona where I go, hi guys, hey world, I am eating breakfast right now and this is my cat. Because that's what I would be doing if it was Snapchat or Periscope, and I don't want to be that person. So that's me.
So I'm just gonna, I think that's hilarious. As far as the adopting a brand new or every tool, I'm kind of the same way as Suzie. I realize what I'm going to be taking on because you have, let's just say, like 5 or 10 major goals that you're looking to accomplish over the course of the year, and then you have to, all right, so I'm going to integrate this new tool or 5 new tools into all of these different strategies. It's a lot, and if you don't think that you're going to be able to consistently contribute to that source, for me, I'd rather do the research up front, kind of put my ear to the ground, listen to what all you fine people are saying about it, and then make an informed decision because I know I'm going to be taking it on. It's not just one tool. It's going to be integrated throughout the entire strategy for the company. So that's me.
So I know we mentioned a couple of things so far, but as a community manager trying to build their personal brand, what should you absolutely never do? I would say curse on a hangout, but there, I mean, there's all kinds of other, depending on the crowd you roll with.
I would say don't make it about you. It's about everyone else. Think of yourself as a public servant. You jump on social media because, yeah, you want to engage, you want to build relationships, but adding values is a key to that. I know that sounds almost cliche at this point because you're constantly hearing of adding value, but it is so true. You know, people, they don't want to be sold. They want to be engaged. And use these mediums to go ahead and build relationships at scale, add value to those relationships, and keep doing it over and over. I think when you are constantly self-promoting yourself, when you're constantly making people feel like there's something in it for you, and also when you ignore your community, I think that is where people start to really give you the reputation that you deserve at that point. So, I think really putting an emphasis on community first above all. It's no different than if you work in marketing or you work for a company, your customers come first. So think of your community in the same light.
Yeah, I would say don't be annoying. Think about it in terms of if you're at a workplace, right, and you're constantly walking by someone else's cubicle and being like, hey, guess what I did? I just got this amazing award, and I am so cool, right? Like, that is the most obnoxious thing ever. And so if you're filling up your feed with that, it's just really, really obnoxious. Or if you're walking by and saying, hey, follow me, you know, think about if you're offline, what's really obnoxious. And don't do it online. And also have, you know, once again, thinking about the offline-online thing, if you just start at a company, you're not going to start walking around to people who have been there longer than you saying, can I help you do your job? Right? No, that's insulting. Don't do that. Recognize that you're moving up in the rank. Recognize that, you know, you need to learn that, you know, there are different things. At the same time, though, also, you know, steer clear of people who are negative, but don't engage in Twitter battles. Don't just, you know, don't let yourself get dragged down by that, and just, you know, be courteous, be a nice person. Don't let people walk all over you. Those of you who know me know I do not stand for that at all, but, you know, just that's how I always tell people, right? Is just think about, it's human nature. Sometimes when we jump on social or people jump on social, it's like all of those things that just come naturally to you in day-to-day interactions get thrown out the window. And that's stupid because these relationships and interactions are exactly the same, which is what all of us know as community managers. So just think about it that way. If you don't, you're going to really put people off, and those are people who could often help you in the future too. So think about that.
From a strategy standpoint, how do you guys balance engagement on social networks between your personal handles and perhaps a brand handle? So if you're a community manager and you're encouraged to use the brand handle only, how do you bring your voice to that handle without kind of dominating the brand messaging?
So it is, it's definitely tricky, but the thing is, I think you want to use it to your advantage. So whoever you are as part of your personal brand, that's your, hopefully, your authentic self, that should come through as your voice, as you're representing the brand. Most brands have their own voice that they would like you to kind of play to, but everybody, I think the best community managers find their own voice within that brand voice. So that's how you kind of set yourself up with a personal identity within a brand. If you are able to do that successfully, you're going to be an awesome community manager, because you're going to be able to pull those different parts of yourself, put those into different voices for different brands. And when you can do that, you can jump from brand to brand to brand in one day seamlessly. And so the people that I see that are able to do that successfully, incorporate their personal brand, their personality, their character, who they are, into that brand voice, those are the most successful community managers.
So in our last 10 minutes, I kind of want to end on a fun question, because I know a lot of us, our path to community management or social media definitely was not the same. So I would love to hear your story of how you either fell into community management, or you just, it's been your long time goal. So share with everybody your path to where you are now. And
so,
we'll start.
Oh, no, go.
No,
Who,
I was gonna pick. You go.
Oh. No, so I started by actually doing community, being a community activist, an accidental community activist at the University of Virginia. The long and the short is the first female president at the University of Virginia suddenly resigned, was forced out, and I got pissed. And so I put together a Facebook group. We ended up getting over 7,000 members in the group within 10 days, put together an offline rally. It was kind of insane. And I suddenly realized that this was something that I was good at. I was currently working on my PhD at UVA in political science with a focus on political psychology, and wanted to turn it into my dissertation. My professors were like, if you leave out all mentions of the internet, then sure. And I was like, no. So I ended up looking around and started, really, it's a story of building my personal brand and figuring out, once again, strategically, how to do all that. And I was able to, embark upon this other career path where I'm definitely doing way more than I could have within academia in terms of research and analytics and just, all sorts of things. But yeah, that was quite the experience, super random. So I have no marketing background, and yet I work in social media marketing. So I'm kind of self-taught in all that.
That's really cool. I did not know that. Super cool. All right, Miss Lorrie, what's your story?
So I definitely am someone that can admit I fell into social media. I had been actually working in like financial support and customer service and all that before I made the switch, and it has been awesome. It's been incredible. Like I had mentioned, I did social for a video messaging app, which helped to build the relationships that I have now, that helped to get the job that I have now, which are still playing out because it's why I'm sitting here today. And so I'm so fortunate that I, had a passion for people and was able to incorporate that into my first social gig. I started social for the app. I built the whole community, and so just the ability to be myself there is what helped me to be successful. And so I owe a lot of that to Twitter and being able to have a platform that allows you to meet so many different people and keep connecting with them. It's absolutely incredible. It's been an awesome road, and I cannot wait to see what's next.
All right, Mr. Carlos.
Yeah, I shared a little bit of my story earlier on. So I used to be a banker and lost my job in 2008. And, for starters, I never thought that I would work in social media. I've been using social media since it was called AOL back in the day in the 90s. I grew up on it. But I never thought that I would actually work this closely with social media. I don't have a background or a degree in marketing by any means. And when I discovered that I wasn't going to be able to find a job in banking, especially during the recession, I decided to start up my own company, Jobs Direct USA, which was a staffing firm. I started this right out of a bedroom at my house in Jacksonville, Florida at the time. And it was through social media that I was able to actually grow a brand for my company before growing a brand for myself. And I tell you, by networking for 4 years consistently, I was able to land a job thanks to a gentleman that a lot of you might know. His name's Nick Cicero. And Nick Cicero was working at the agency at the time for Winn-Dixie, a supermarket chain based out of Jacksonville, Florida, where I lived. And Nick helped me land a job as the first ever social media manager for Winn-Dixie. And it was my first real paid job in social media outside of doing this for my own company. And I worked there for a couple years, started social from the ground up for him. From there, I moved on to Save-A-Lot, where I ran digital, and then I came out here to California to go work for LinkedIn before coming out to BMC Software, where I'm at today. So just this journey, looking back, over a period of 8 years, it's crazy. And like I said before, I call it an evolution because we are always growing, we're always evolving, and I have this belief. You don't know who holds the keys to your success. So because of that, it's very important that you treat each person that you come across on social media equally, because you don't know if that person that you happen to blow off in passing or that person that you actually take the time to engage with is the person that could potentially help you land your next role that could really set up your future. And I like to believe I'm living proof of that, and I still have the tweet as evidence that I sent to Nick back in 2011 inquiring about that role at Winn-Dixie.
And last but not least, Miss Kira.
It's funny. It sounds like we all kind of came from the financial sales world. I I did the same thing. I fell into that. I graduated in 2008 and wanted to move to Denver. Moved out. Ended up in a financial sales company. Ended up climbing the ranks there. Really liked the fact that I did something I never thought I could do, but it never spoke to my soul. I never loved it. I never loved the work that I was doing. So fortunately, I was laid off from that company, and that was in March of this past year. I just started looking. I was on Monster. I was on everything, and I'd been on LinkedIn for years. Didn't really think of that for my job search, so I just popped on one day and found Jim Keenan, a sales guy. Fell in love with his brand. I mean, talk about having a glimpse into a culture and who you're going to be working with. So if you are a hiring manager, put that out there if it's good, because it's attractive. So I was like, okay, well, this is going to require marketing. This is going to be requiring admin skills, which obviously I can do. But I went from sales to marketing, easy switch. But I mean, I can't remember exactly what the question was at this point. But
your story.
Oh yeah. So I mean, it was scary again, something that I didn't set out knowing that this is what I was looking for. But you know what? This is a company that I knew I could grow with. This was something that I knew I could be passionate about and love going to my job every day. So I just decided to do it, and I mean, I would never look back to financial sales again. That's for sure. So I just say having that brand. Luckily, I had enough social. I was engaged on LinkedIn. I was engaged on Facebook and Twitter. He got enough of a glimpse to take a chance on me, and it was just lucky.
Well, you all have very inspiring stories. I am super stoked to know you all personally and professionally. Thank you for spending time with me and the CMAD crew this morning. If I encourage everybody watching to connect with these awesome humans. Any questions regarding social branding, personal branding, social strategy, these four are your guys. Again, thank you to everybody, and happy Community Manager Day.
Hey guys, thanks a lot for all of that, and I love hearing all those stories. And speaking of that, make sure that you do check cmad.co all day. We do have a lot of really awesome community manager stories that are going to be going up there, as well as all of the videos for the Hangouts in the past and all the awards and pretty much everything to fill up your little community manager heart today. So thanks a lot, guys, and we will see you on the next panel in 10 minutes.
Bye. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.